The morning routine played out like clockwork in the Callahan house. Howard cracked eggs into the cast-iron skillet, the butter hissing as it hit the hot surface. Steam rose from his coffee mug while he watched Delaney attempt to eat cereal with her hands more than her spoon. "Daddy, look," she giggled, holding up a Cheerio. "Very good, princess." Howard ruffled her blonde curls. At 3, everything was still magic to her. B.O. sat across the table, methodically eating his breakfast while reading a field guide to Montana wildlife. The 9-year-old had Howard's focus and Willa's intelligence, though he used both differently than his mother. Howard watched his son's careful movements, the way Bo cut his toast into precise squares, how he organized his bacon strips by size before eating them. Everything had to make sense to Bo. Chaos bothered him the same way it bothered Howard. "Where's Mom?" Bo asked without looking up from his book. "Getting ready for work." Howard flipped the eggs, watching the whites set around the golden yolks. The kitchen smelled like butter and coffee, normal morning smells that made everything feel safe. "You know how she likes to get to school early." Bo marked his place in the book with his finger. "She used to eat breakfast with us." Howard paused. His son was right. Willa used to sit with them every morning, helping Delaney with her cereal, asking Bo about his reading. What had that changed? Howard tried to remember the last time they'd all eaten breakfast together, but the timeline blurred. People changed their routines sometimes, Howard said carefully. Willa appeared in the kitchen doorway, dressed in dark jeans and a sweater. She grabbed her travel mug from the counter and kissed Delaney's head. Howard noticed she was wearing makeup more than usual for school day. Her hair was styled differently too, more carefully arranged than normal. "Grading papers at school today," she announced, slinging her purse over her shoulder. The purse was new, Howard realized. Black leather, expensive looking. Where'd she bought that? "Might be late tonight." Howard nodded, filing away these small observations. His military training had taught him that details mattered, that patterns revealed truths people try to hide. "Drive safe." She hesitated at the door, looking back at him. Something flickered across her face, guilt, maybe, or fear. For a moment, she looked like she wanted to say something else. Then the expression vanished, replaced by her usual morning smile. "You too. Be careful out there today." The words carried an odd weight, as if she meant something more than general caution. Howard felt a small chill run down his spine, but he couldn't identify why. The front door closed with a soft click. Howard served Bo his eggs and watched through the kitchen window as Willa backed her Honda out of the driveway. Bo walked to the window, pressing his nose against the glass. Howard watched his son's methodical approach to observation, the same systematic process Howard had learned in sniper school. Bo tracked movement, noted directions, compared current behavior to established patterns. Most 9-year-olds wouldn't think to analyze their mother's driving route, but Bo wasn't most children. "What are you doing, buddy?" "Watching Mom." Bo tracked the car as it reached the end of their street. She turned right. "So, school is left." "She always goes left to school." Bo's voice carried the matter-of-fact tone he used when stating obvious truths. To him, patterns were sacred. Deviations required explanation. Howard set down his spatula and joined his son at the window. The Honda had disappeared around the corner, heading toward the commercial district instead of the school. There could be innocent explanations: gas station, coffee shop, pharmacy. But Bo's certainty made Howard reconsider what he thought he knew about his wife's routine. Maybe she's stopping somewhere first. Bo shrugged and returned to his breakfast, but Howard caught the look in his son's eyes. It was the same expression Howard got when intelligence reports didn't match field observation: skeptical, alert, filing information for future reference. After dropping the kids at school and daycare, Howard drove to his business on the outskirts of town. Callahan Survival Training occupied 20 acres of forest and open land, with a main building, obstacle course, and shooting range. His 3 employees were already setting up for the day's corporate team-building session. Howard had built the business carefully over 5 years, drawing on his military experience to teach practical skills to civilians. Most clients were weekend warriors wanting to feel capable in the wilderness, but some were serious preppers or security professionals. The work satisfied something deep in Howard's nature, the need to protect people by teaching them to protect themselves. Morning boss called Jake his lead instructor. Jake was former Army, solid and reliable. Group from the tech company arrives at 9. Howard unlocked the office and reviewed the day's schedule. 12 executives from Bozeman wanted to learn basic wilderness skills. Easy money, but his mind kept drifting to Bo's observation. The way his son had stated the facts so simply, without drama or accusation. Just data that didn't fit the expected pattern. Willa turned right. Howard understood the importance of accurate intelligence. In Afghanistan, bad information got people killed. Wrong assumptions led to ambushes. The most dangerous enemy was the one you thought you knew, but actually didn't understand at all. He pulled up the Find My Phone app on his cell. Willa's location showed her at Valley View Elementary, where she taught 4th grade. The blue dot pulsed steadily from the school building. Howard felt foolish for checking, but Bo's words had planted a seed of doubt that he couldn't ignore. The morning session went smoothly. Howard taught fire-starting techniques, while Jake handled rope work. The executives were typical corporate clients' soft hands, expensive outdoor gear they'd never properly tested, overconfidence masking genuine anxiety about being outside their comfort zones. Howard guided them through the basics with patience, remembering how foreign military skills had seemed to him once too. During lunch break, he checked the app again. Still at school. The blue hadn't moved in 4 hours, which made sense if Willa was actually teaching. But something nagged at him. Howard had learned to trust his instincts. Even when logic suggested he was being paranoid, he called the school's main office. Valley View Elementary. This is Janet. Hi, this is Howard Callahan. I need to get a message to my wife, Willa. Is she available? Oh, I'm sorry, Howard. Willa didn't come in today. She called in sick this morning. Howard felt the world shift slightly around him. Sick? She seemed fine when she left. Maybe something came on suddenly? You know how these things go. Yeah, thanks. Howard ended the call and stared at his phone. Willa's location still showed the school, but the school said she wasn't there, which meant either the GPS was wrong or Willa had left her phone at the school while she went somewhere else. The second possibility sent cold understanding through Howard's chest. People who were planning something they shouldn't be doing often left their phones behind to avoid creating digital evidence of their real location. Mrs. Patterson said Mom wasn't at school today. Howard's hands tightened on the steering wheel. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to form a picture he didn't like. Willa had left for school, but gone somewhere else. She called in sick after leaving the house. Her phone was at the school, but she wasn't. Each fact by itself might have an innocent explanation, but together they painted a pattern of deliberate deception. Maybe she was in meetings, Howard said, though he no longer believed it himself. Mrs. Patterson is the principal. She would know. Bo's logic was unassailable. If anyone would know about a teacher's whereabouts during the school day, it would be the principal. Howard felt the familiar sensation he'd experienced in combat zones when routine patrols suddenly felt wrong. Not panic, but heightened awareness. The understanding that normal rules might not apply anymore, that danger could be closer than it appeared. The difference was that in Afghanistan, he'd known who the potential enemies were. Here, the threat might be sleeping in his bed every night. That evening, Howard grilled burgers while Willa helped Delaney with a puzzle. She seemed normal, laughing at Delaney's stories, asking Bo about his day. But Howard watched her differently now, cataloging details he'd previously ignored. The way she checked her phone constantly, how she'd started working late 3 nights a week, the new clothes that appeared in her closet. After the kids went to bed, Howard found Willa in the living room, typing on her laptop. The blue glow of the screen illuminated her face as her fingers moved quickly across the keyboard. She was absorbed in whatever she was writing, occasionally pausing to think before resuming her rapid typing. Howard recognized the focused intensity. It was how she graded papers or prepared lesson plans. But it was 9:30 on a Tuesday night, well past when she normally finished schoolwork. How was work today? Exhausting. She didn't look up from the screen. These kids are behind in reading. I spent all day creating individual plans. Howard studied her expression. Willa was an excellent teacher, genuinely caring about her students' progress. But she'd called in sick today, which meant she hadn't spent the day at school creating anything. The lie came so smoothly that Howard wondered how many others he'd accepted without question. Mrs. Patterson didn't mention seeing you. Willa's fingers paused on the keyboard for just a moment, a micro-expression that revealed stress. Then she resumed typing, though Howard noticed her rhythm had changed slightly. When did you talk to Mrs. Patterson? When I picked up Bo. She was right there. I was in my classroom all day. Why would she see me? Willa's voice carried an edge of irritation that seemed disproportionate to the question. Are you checking up on me now? The defensive response confirmed Howard's suspicions. Innocent people didn't get angry about simple questions. They might be confused or curious, but anger suggested something to hide. Howard had learned this principle during interrogations in Afghanistan. The truth was usually simple and consistent, while lies required emotional energy to maintain. Just making conversation. She closed the laptop with more force than necessary. I'm going to take a bath. Howard waited until he heard water running upstairs, then walked to the kitchen. Willa's phone lay on the counter, charging. The device represented a potential intelligence goldmine, but Howard knew that accessing it without permission would be both illegal and potentially destructive to their marriage, assuming their marriage was worth preserving. The screen lit up with a text notification, and Howard found himself facing a critical decision point in military intelligence. There was a concept called actionable information data that was both reliable and significant enough to justify changing your operational approach. Howard had spent years learning to distinguish between rumors, speculation, and verified intelligence. The difference often meant life or death for American soldiers. Make sure he drinks it tonight. No delays. Howard read the message twice, his mind automatically analyzing the implications. The sender was listed as T, which suggested either a casual contact who used initials or someone deliberately hiding their identity. The message implied coordination around Howard consuming something, with emphasis on timing and urgency. The phrasing wasn't casual, it was directive, almost military in its precision. Howard memorized the phone number attached to the message and stepped back from the counter. His hands were steady, but his heart rate had increased significantly. After 12 years of marriage, his wife was receiving instructions about making him drink something. The implications were both obvious and terrifying, but Howard forced himself to consider alternative explanations. Could this be about medication? Supplements? Some kind of surprise party preparation? Howard ran through possibilities while part of his mind cataloged the evidence objectively. The secret phone calls, the lies about work, the unexplained money for new clothes, and now mysterious instructions about making him consume something. None of the innocent explanations felt plausible when combined with the pattern of deception. The next morning followed the same pattern, but Howard approached it with the systematic observation skills he developed during years of military operations. Understanding your enemy's patterns was the first step in countering their plans. If Willa was involved in something dangerous, Howard needed to gather intelligence before confronting the threat directly. Howard cooked breakfast with deliberate normalcy, maintaining the family routine while mentally cataloging every detail of Willa's behavior. She wore a different perfume this morning, something lighter and more expensive than her usual scent. Her makeup was more carefully applied than normal, and she'd chosen clothes that were subtly more attractive than her typical teaching attire. These weren't the choices of a woman planning to spend the day in a fourth-grade classroom. Willa claimed she was going to school early again, kissing the children goodbye with what appeared to be genuine affection. Howard watched her face carefully during these interactions, looking for signs of stress or guilt. The human face was remarkably difficult to control completely, and even practiced liars usually revealed micro-expressions that betrayed their true emotional state. Bo watched from the window again, his young face serious with concentration. She turned right again. Bo reported with the precision of a trained observer. This time Howard was ready. His son's consistent observations had provided valuable intelligence about Willa's deception pattern. In military terms, they had established that the subject was following a predictable route that contradicted her stated destination. This suggested either regular meetings with someone or a specific location she visited while maintaining the pretense of going to work. As soon as the kids were dropped off, Howard drove to Valley View Elementary and positioned his truck across the street with a clear view of the staff parking lot. This was basic surveillance technique, establish visual confirmation of the subject's actual location versus their claimed location. Willa's Honda wasn't in the parking lot, which confirmed that her morning routine was completely fabricated. He called the school office, using a simple verification technique that would provide definitive confirmation without raising suspicions. Valley View Elementary, this is Janet. Hi, this is Howard Callahan, Willa's husband. She forgot her lunch at home. Is she in her classroom? Oh, Howard. Actually, Willa called in sick today. Didn't she tell you? The confirmation hit Howard like cold water. Willa had left the house claiming to go to work, but she'd already called in sick before leaving. This wasn't a spontaneous decision or a last-minute change of plans. She had deliberately planned to be somewhere else while making Howard believe she was at school. The level of premeditation was chilling. Must have slipped my mind. Thanks. Howard sat in his truck, processing the implications methodically. Military intelligence training had taught him to build cases using multiple independent sources of verification. Single data points could be misleading, but when multiple sources confirmed the same conclusions, you could rely on the intelligence for operational planning. Source 1. Bo's visual observation of Willa's driving route contradicting her stated destination. Source 2. School administration confirming that Willa had called in sick despite leaving home as if going to work. Source 3. The mysterious text message instructing someone to make Howard drink something, with emphasis on timing and compliance. These weren't random coincidences or innocent misunderstandings. They represented a pattern of deliberate deception involving coordination with unknown parties. In intelligence analysis, this type of pattern suggested active conspiracy rather than simple marital problems or personal issues. He drove home and began what intelligence professionals call a detailed site survey, a systematic search for evidence that could confirm or refute his developing hypothesis. Howard approached this task with the same methodical precision he'd used when clearing buildings in Afghanistan. Every military operation began with good intelligence, and every intelligence operation began with careful observation and evidence collection. Howard searched through the medicine cabinet first, looking for anything unusual or out of place. He checked expiration dates, noted quantities, and photographed pill bottles with his phone for later reference. Nothing seemed obviously dangerous, but Howard had learned that the most effective weapons were often the most subtle ones. The kitchen cabinets yielded similar results: normal household supplies, cleaning products, spices, and food items. But Howard's training had taught him that people often hid important items in secondary locations, places that seemed innocent but provided easy access when needed. In Willa's bedside table, behind a stack of romance novels and teaching journals, he found something that made his blood run cold. A small glass vial filled with clear liquid, about the size of a medicine bottle, but without any pharmaceutical labeling or identification marks. The vial was carefully wrapped in tissue paper and hidden beneath personal items, suggesting both its importance and the need for concealment. Howard had encountered enough battlefield poison attempts during his deployment to recognize the setup immediately. Colorless, odorless liquids were the preferred method for covert elimination because they could be added to food or drinks without detection. The small quantity suggested high potency, whatever this substance was. It didn't require a large dose to be effective. The discovery transformed Howard's situation from suspicious husband to potential target of assassination. This wasn't about marital problems or infidelity anymore. Someone was planning to kill him, and his wife was either involved or being used as an unwitting accomplice. Either way, his children were in immediate danger. That evening, Howard acted with the calculated normalcy of a deep-cover operative maintaining his false identity while gathering crucial intelligence. He grilled chicken with his usual attention to detail, helped Bo with math homework by working through problems step by step, and gave Delaney her bath while singing the silly song she loved. Every action was designed to maintain the appearance of ordinary family life, while his mind raced through tactical considerations. Howard understood that he was now operating in what intelligence professionals call a hostile environment, a situation where normal assumptions about safety and trust no longer applied. The challenge was protecting his children while gathering enough evidence to ensure their long-term security. Acting too quickly could put them in immediate danger, but waiting too long might allow the threat to succeed. After dinner, Willa made tea for both of them, a gesture that had once seemed caring but now felt ominous given what Howard had discovered. Earl Grey, his favorite, served in the blue ceramic mugs they'd received as a wedding gift. She handed him the steaming cup with a smile that looked genuine, even loving. "Thought you might want to relax tonight." Howard accepted the mug, noting that his tea appeared slightly cloudier than normal, a subtle difference that might have been innocent but could also indicate the presence of dissolved substances. He'd learned in military training that the most effective poisons were often tasteless and nearly invisible when mixed with other liquids. "Thanks." Howard held the mug, but didn't drink. "Actually, I need to check something in the garage first." "Hold on." In the garage, Howard dumped the entire contents of his mug down the utility sink, watching the dark liquid swirl away down the drain. He rinsed the mug thoroughly and refilled it with plain water from the tap, ensuring that the temperature and color approximately matched what Willa would expect. This type of counter-surveillance required careful attention to details that might reveal the deception. When he returned to the living room, Willa was watching him with an intensity that seemed unusual for such a casual moment. Her eyes tracked his movements as he settled into his chair, and Howard noticed that she seemed to be waiting for something specific to happen. "Everything okay? Just had to turn off the compressor." Howard sipped the water and made a satisfied sound. "Perfect temperature." Willa visibly relaxed, her shoulders dropping slightly and her breathing becoming more regular. This physiological response suggested that she'd been experiencing stress about whether Howard would drink the tea, which strongly supported his hypothesis about the liquid's dangerous nature. Howard drank the entire mug while they watched television, making appropriate comments about the program, while internally calculating how long someone might expect poison to take effect. Willa checked her phone repeatedly, texting someone with the quick, urgent movements of someone coordinating time-sensitive activities. Around 10 o'clock, Howard implemented the next phase of his counter-surveillance plan. He stretched and yawned with exaggerated fatigue, creating the appearance of someone affected by whatever substance Willa believed he had consumed. "I'm beat. Think I'll turn in early. I'll be up in a few minutes." Willa's response came too quickly, suggesting she'd been waiting for this moment. Howard went upstairs and began what military personnel call tactical preparation, positioning himself to observe and respond to threats while appearing vulnerable to surveillance. He brushed his teeth, changed into sleeping clothes, and climbed into bed, but remained fully alert with his phone nearby and his mental map of the house clearly visualized. Through the partially open bedroom door, Howard could hear Willa moving around downstairs. Her footsteps had a different quality, now more purposeful and urgent than her normal bedtime routine. The sounds included the soft creak of floorboards near the front door, the quiet beep of the security system being disarmed, and the distinctive sound of someone trying to move quietly through a familiar space. Howard's phone buzzed with a text message, and he glanced at the screen through half-closed eyes, maintaining the appearance of unconsciousness while gathering critical intelligence. "Willa, he's down. Come through the basement." The message confirmed Howard's worst fears while providing crucial tactical information. Willa was actively coordinating with someone outside the house to gain entry while she believed Howard was incapacitated. The basement entry suggested they wanted to avoid being seen by neighbors or security cameras positioned near the main entrances. This level of operational planning indicated significant premeditation and familiarity with the house layout. Howard heard the basement door open, followed by careful footsteps on the wooden stairs. Someone was entering his home with Willa's assistance, at a time when she believed he was helpless to defend himself or his children. The tactical situation had moved from potential threat to active danger, requiring immediate defensive action. Willa's voice, low and urgent. "Make it look natural, like he fell down the stairs." A man's voice responded. "Where are the kids?" "Asleep upstairs. They won't wake up." Howard lay perfectly still, controlling his breathing. Through the crack in the bedroom door, he saw shadows moving in the hallway. Willa appeared first, followed by a tall man in dark clothes. Howard glimpsed work boots, jeans, and the outline of something in the man's hand. The man whispered something to Willa. She nodded and pointed toward the bedroom. Howard closed his eyes and forced his body to go limp. The bedroom door opened wider. Footsteps approached the bed. "Is he out?" the man asked. "Should be. I used the whole vial." "Good. Help me get him downstairs." Howard felt hands grab his shoulders. The moment they tried to lift him, he would have to act. But a small voice stopped everything. "Mom." Bo stood in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. The man immediately stepped behind Willa. "What are you doing up, baby?" Willa's voice was strained. "I heard voices. Is Daddy okay?" "He's just sleeping. Go back to bed." Bo looked past his mother to where the man stood in the shadows. Even in the dim light, Howard could see his son's analytical mind working. "Who's that?" "Nobody, sweetie. Just go to bed." But Bo took a step into the room. "Dad, are you okay?" The man shifted impatiently. Willa grabbed Bo's arm. "I said go to bed. Now." Her sharp tone made Bo flinch, but he didn't move. His eyes found Howard's face. Howard opened his eyes just enough to meet his son's gaze. Bo's expression didn't change, but Howard saw the understanding there. The kid was smart. Too smart. "Okay, Mom." Bo backed toward the door. "I'll go to bed." As soon as Bo disappeared, the man stepped forward again. "Kid's gonna be a problem. He won't remember anything. Come on, let's do this." They reached for Howard again. This time he was ready. Howard exploded from the bed, grabbing the man's wrist and twisting. Something clattered to the floor, a hunting knife. The man cursed and swung with his free hand, but Howard ducked and drove his elbow into the man's ribs. Willa screamed. The man was bigger than Howard, but slower. Howard used his Marine training, targeting pressure points and joints. A quick strike to the throat sent the man staggering backward. "Bo!" Howard shouted. "Get Delaney and go to the backyard. Now!" Bo appeared instantly, as if he'd been waiting in the hallway. He ran to Delaney's room while Howard grappled with the intruder. The man recovered and charged. Howard sidestepped and used the man's momentum to slam him into the dresser. The mirror shattered. "Stop." Willa pulled a gun from her nightstand. "Just stop." Howard froze. The gun was pointed at his chest. "I'm sorry," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, but we need the money." "What money?" "The insurance. We can't keep living like this." The man wiped blood from his mouth. "Shoot him and let's go." "I can't. Not like this." "Then I will." The man lunged for the gun. Howard dove toward the window as the gun went off. Glass exploded around him as he crashed through into the bushes below. He hit the ground hard, rolling to absorb the impact. Above him, Willa was screaming at the man. "You idiot. It has to look like an accident." Howard crawled away from the house, staying low. His shoulder burned where Glass had cut him, but he could move. In the backyard, he found Bo crouched behind the garden shed, holding Delaney. "Daddy!" Delaney reached for him. "Shoo, princess. We have to be quiet." Howard gathered both children. "We're going to play a game, okay? We're going to be very quiet and very still." They huddled in the darkness behind the shed. Through the broken bedroom window, Howard could hear Willa and the man arguing. "He's gone," the man said. "We need to find him. This is ruined. Everything is ruined. Not if we find him before he talks." Howard pulled out his phone and dialed 911, but the man's voice made him pause. "Check on the kids." If they saw anything, the threat was clear. Howard ended the call without connecting. If he brought the police now, Willa might claim he attacked her. It would be his word against hers, and she was a respected teacher while he was a man with military training who'd been found fighting an intruder. He needed evidence. Proof of what she'd planned. But first, he needed to get his children to safety. "Bo," he whispered, "remember the emergency plan?" They practiced it dozens of times. If anything ever happened to the house, they would meet at Zadie's cabin. Bo nodded. "Take Delaney to the truck. Stay low and quiet." They crept across the yard to where Howard's pickup was parked on the street. The house was still lit up, shadows moving behind the windows. Howard started the engine and drove away without turning on the headlights. In the rearview mirror, he saw the man's silhouette appear in the front door, looking out at the street. Zadie Reese lived 15 miles outside town in a cabin that was part fortress, part tech center. Solar panels covered the roof, while satellite dishes and antennas bristled from the corners. Security cameras monitored every approach. Howard pulled up the gravel driveway at midnight. Motion sensors triggered floodlights, and Zadie appeared on the porch with a shotgun before he'd even stopped the truck. Howard? What the hell? Need help? Howard climbed out with Delaney asleep in his arms. Bo followed, clutching his backpack. Zadie took one look at Howard's cut face and torn clothes and ushered them inside. Her cabin was sparse, but functional military surplus furniture, computer equipment lining one wall, maps and tactical gear everywhere. Kids can sleep in the back room, she said, leading them down a short hallway. What happened? Howard tucked Delaney into a sleeping bag on the floor while Bo arranged his things nearby. His son hadn't said a word during the drive, but Howard could see the wheels turning. Get some sleep, buddy. We'll talk in the morning. Dad. Bo's voice was small in the darkness. Is Mom going to jail? The question hit Howard harder than the man's punches. I don't know yet. Good. She should. Howard closed the door and returned to the main room. Zadie had coffee brewing and her laptop open. Talk, she said. Howard told her everything. The lies about work, the suspicious text, the poison in the tea, the man with the knife. Zadie listened without interruption, her expression growing darker. Life insurance? She asked when he finished. Has to be. She mentioned needing money. And this T person? Never seen him before tonight. Big guy, maybe 6'2", brown hair. Knew his way around the house. Zadie cracked her knuckles and started typing. Let's find out who your wife's been talking to. Can you do that? Howard, I can hack a Pentagon server from my kitchen table. Checking your wife's text messages is child's play. Within an hour, Zadie had accessed Willa's phone records, email accounts, and social media. The picture that emerged made Howard's stomach turn. Ty Huxley, Zadie read from her screen. Age 37, recently paroled from Idaho State Correctional. Served 4 years for armed robbery and assault. Current address. She typed more. Motel 6 on Main Street. How long have they been in contact? Phone records show regular calls starting 2 years ago. But look at this. Zadie pulled up Willa's email. She's been deleting messages, but I can recover them. The emails painted a clear picture. Willa and Ty had met online, started an affair, and gradually planned Howard's murder. The life insurance policy was worth $1.2 million. Willa had taken it out 6 months ago without Howard's knowledge. She's been busy, Zadie muttered, scrolling through deleted emails. Look at this search history. The browser history made Howard's blood boil. Searches for painless poisons, life insurance payout rules, murder-suicide cover stories, and how long before police declare someone dead. And this is interesting. Zadie opened another file. Draft GoFundMe page titled Widowed Mother of Two. She was planning to crowdfund after your funeral. Howard stared at the screen. The woman he'd married, the mother of his children, had planned every detail of his death. She'd calculated the financial benefit of his murder and prepared a profit from his corpse. You can't just walk into the sheriff's office with this, Zadie said. We hack her accounts. None of this would be admissible in court. Then what do? We make her hang herself with her own rope. You gotta build the coffin with her fingerprints on the nails. Howard's phone buzzed. A text from Willa. Howard, where are you? There was a break-in. Someone attacked us. I'm so scared. He showed Zadie the message. She's already spinning the story, Zadie said, making herself the victim. Howard typed back. Kids and I are safe. Calling police now. No, Zadie grabbed his arm. Don't call yet. Let her dig the hole deeper first. I need a lawyer. I know someone. Mason Tierce. Handled some cases for military contractors. He's good and he's discreet. Zadie made the call. 20 minutes later, Mason Tierce arrived at the cabin. He was younger than Howard expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and an expensive suit that looked out of place in the wilderness. This is a complex situation, Mason said after hearing the story. Your wife attempted murder but we need ironclad evidence. A jury has to hate her more than they're confused by the circumstances. What do you mean? Right now, you're a former Marine who disappeared in the night with his children after a violent confrontation. She's a school teacher claiming someone broke into her house. Without solid proof of her intent, this becomes he said, she said. We have emails. Obtained illegally. Inadmissible. Mason leaned forward. But here's what we can do. Let her think she succeeded. Let her file the insurance claim, play the grieving widow, make public statements. The more lies she tells, the more we can prove she's lying. You want me to play dead? For a few days. Let her reveal her true nature. Meanwhile, we gather legal evidence. Howard looked at his children sleeping in the back room. What about Bo and Delaney? They stay with you. When this comes out, you'll need to prove you were protecting them, not kidnapping them. The plan was risky, but Howard had learned to trust good intelligence and careful planning. They would let Willa believe she'd won while they built an unshakable case against her. Over the next 3 days, Willa played her part with the skill of a professional actress, demonstrating how easily public perception could be manipulated through carefully crafted emotional performances. She filed a missing persons report with local police, describing Howard's disappearance as the tragic aftermath of a violent home invasion. Her story painted her as a traumatized victim whose heroic husband had saved his family before vanishing into the night. The narrative Willa constructed was psychologically sophisticated because it contained elements of truth woven together with complete fabrications. She had indeed been attacked in her home. Someone had broken in through the basement. There had been a violent struggle. But she repositioned herself as the innocent victim rather than the coordinating conspirator, as she transformed Howard from target to hero. Local television news interviewed Willa outside the sheriff's office, and her performance was remarkable to watch. She displayed exactly the right combination of fear, grief, and hope that viewers would expect from a woman whose husband had disappeared while protecting his family. Tears appeared at precisely the right moments. Her voice broke when discussing the children's trauma. She thanked the community for their support while appealing for any information about Howard's whereabouts. Howard is a hero, she told Channel 7, looking directly into the camera with eyes that glistened with unshed tears. He saved us from that terrible man. I just pray he and the kids are safe. But behind the public facade of grief and worry, Willa was extraordinarily busy with activities that revealed her true priorities and intentions. Mason's private investigator documented every meeting, every phone call, and every transaction as Willa moved quickly to capitalize on Howard's presumed death. Within 24 hours of filing the missing persons report, Willa had contacted 3 different insurance companies to inquire about the claims process for missing persons cases. She met with adjusters, provided documentation, and began the paperwork necessary to collect on Howard's life insurance policy. The speed and efficiency of these actions contradicted her public image as a grieving wife too traumatized to think clearly. Willa also contacted a real estate agent about selling the family home, explaining that she couldn't afford the mortgage payments without Howard's income and that the house held too many painful memories. The agent later told investigators that Willa seemed remarkably composed and businesslike for someone whose husband had just disappeared, focusing primarily on financial details rather than emotional concerns. The GoFundMe page went live on day 3, representing the culmination of Willa's carefully planned financial exploitation of her husband's presumed death. Titled Help a Grieving Mother, the page combined emotionally manipulative language with professional quality photographs and a compelling narrative designed to maximize donations from strangers who felt sympathy for her supposed plight. The fundraising page raised $8,000 in the first day, demonstrating how effectively Willa could manipulate public emotions for financial gain. Contributors left messages of support and encouragement, expressing outrage at the violent criminals who had destroyed an innocent family and admiration for the brave mother trying to rebuild her life. Each donation represented someone who had been successfully deceived by Willa's performance. "She's good," Zadie admitted, watching Willa's television performance on the news. "If I didn't know better, I believe her." Howard felt physically sick watching his wife lie so smoothly to people who genuinely wanted to help her. But he understood that every false tear, every fabricated detail, and every manipulative appeal for sympathy was actually making the case against her stronger. In intelligence work, the most effective way to expose a liar was often to let them continue lying until the contradictions became impossible to explain away. Each public statement Willa made was being recorded and documented by Mason's team. Every interview, every social media post, and every conversation with insurance adjusters created evidence that could later be used to prove her deception. The more elaborate her fictional narrative became, the easier it would be to demonstrate that she had been actively participating in a conspiracy to commit murder. On Thursday, Mason called with an update that added crucial scientific evidence to their growing case against Willa. The insurance company is getting suspicious, Mason reported during their secure phone conversation. A $1 million claim on a missing person after 3 days raises red flags. They're starting their own investigation. Good. Howard understood that insurance companies had both the resources and motivation to conduct thorough investigations into suspicious claims. Their involvement would add credibility to the case against Willa. Also, I had someone examine that vial you found. Potassium chloride, enough to cause cardiac arrest in about 10 minutes. Nearly impossible to detect without specific testing. The confirmation that Willa had been planning to murder him with hospital-grade poison added a new level of premeditation to the charges she would eventually face. Potassium chloride was not something someone could obtain accidentally or use without understanding its lethal effects. She researched it thoroughly. Our computer expert recovered more deleted files. She studied dosage charts, symptoms, detection methods. This wasn't a crime of passion. She planned to murder you scientifically. That afternoon, Howard made a decision that chilled him. Bo needed to go back to school. I want to help, the 9-year-old said when Howard explained. It's too dangerous. Mom doesn't think I'm smart enough to figure things out. She's wrong. Howard studied his son's face. Bo had inherited more than just observation skills. He had Howard's courage and Willa's intelligence. Combined properly, those traits made him formidable. If you go back, you have to be very careful. She can't know you're gathering information. I understand. Zadie fitted Bo with a tiny recording device disguised as a button on his shirt. The range was limited, but it would capture conversations. Howard drove Bo to school on Friday morning, staying hidden while Zadie walked him to the front door. Willa was there, playing the part of the worried mother. Oh, Bo. She hugged him tight. Where have you been? I was so scared. With Dad, Bo said simply. Where is he? Is he okay? He's safe. He said to tell you he's thinking. It was a perfect response. Vague enough to be believable, specific enough to give Willa hope that Howard might return. That afternoon, when Zadie picked up Bo from school, the 9-year-old was visibly excited about what he had discovered. His natural intelligence and careful observation skills had made him an inadvertent intelligence asset in building the case against his own mother. The situation was both tragic and necessary. Bo's testimony would likely be crucial in ensuring Willa faced appropriate consequences for her actions. She called someone during lunch. Bo reported with the precision of a trained observer. She said, he's getting suspicious. We need to move faster. This intelligence was particularly valuable because it demonstrated Willa's ongoing coordination with conspirators even after Howard's disappearance. It also showed that she was aware of potential threats to their plan and was actively adjusting her strategy in response to changing circumstances. Did she say who? Zadie asked, though they all suspected the answer. No, but she kept looking around to make sure nobody heard. Bo's attention to detail rivaled that of professional surveillance operatives. His description of Willa's operational security measures suggested she understood the importance of maintaining secrecy about her criminal activities. The recorded conversation was brief, but legally significant. When combined with the other evidence they had gathered, it painted a clear picture of ongoing conspiracy that extended well beyond the night of the attempted murder. Willa wasn't just covering up a crime that had already occurred, she was actively participating in new criminal activities designed to complete her original plan through different methods. Saturday brought the breakthrough they needed when Ty Huxley made the crucial mistake that Howard had been counting on. In intelligence operations, The most effective way to expose an enemy network was often to create stress and paranoia within the organization, causing members to turn against each other and reveal information they would normally keep secret. Howard had spent considerable time analyzing Ty's psychological profile based on his criminal history and behavior during the home invasion. Ty was clearly violent and impulsive, with a history of poor decision-making under pressure. These personality traits made him both dangerous and exploitable, exactly the type of person who would react poorly to perceived betrayal by an accomplice. What if we made him paranoid? Howard suggested to Zadie during one of their strategy sessions. The idea was based on a psychological warfare technique called sowing discord among enemies that Howard had learned during counterinsurgency training in Afghanistan. How? Zadie asked, though her expression suggested she was already considering the technical possibilities. Anonymous texts. Make him think Willa is planning to betray him. Zadie's grin revealed her appreciation for the elegant simplicity of the plan. I like it. They crafted messages designed to make Ty think Willa was already moving on to another man. Ty is too unstable. I'll pin it on him. One bullet solves everything. Meet me at the usual place. And don't worry about T anymore. Found someone more reliable. T served his purpose. The effect was immediate. Within an hour of receiving the fake messages, Ty was calling Willa repeatedly. When she didn't answer, he drove to the school. Mason's investigator was there to record everything. Ty confronted Willa in the parking lot after dismissal, screaming accusations while parents and teachers watched in shock. You lying bitch. You think you can just throw me away? Ty, calm down. You're scaring people. I should have killed all of you when I had the chance. Please just go home. We'll talk later. No more talking. Ty grabbed Willa's arm. You owe me half that money. Teachers intervened and called the police. Ty was arrested for violating his parole and making terroristic threats. In custody, he was too angry to think clearly. She planned the whole thing, he told detectives. She wanted her husband dead for the insurance money. But without corroborating evidence, Ty's claims seemed like the desperate lies of an angry ex-con. The police questioned Willa, who played the victim perfectly. I don't know what he's talking about, she sobbed. He's been stalking me since my husband disappeared. I think he's the one who broke into our house. Howard watched the interrogation video later and felt grudging respect for Willa's performance. She was convincing because she believed her own lies, but Ty's arrest served their purpose. It removed the immediate threat and established the connection between Willa and a violent criminal. More importantly, it made Willa feel safe. Safe people made mistakes that on Monday morning, exactly 1 week after the attack, Howard walked into the Gallatin County Sheriff's Office carrying 2 boxes of evidence. Sheriff Wallace Driggs was an old-school lawman who'd known Howard since he moved to Bozeman. Driggs had served in Vietnam and respected Howard's military service, but he was also skeptical of dramatic stories. Howard Callahan, Driggs said when the desk sergeant brought him back. Your wife's been worried sick about you. I'm sure she has. Howard set the boxes on Driggs' desk. We need to talk. Where have you been? And where are your kids? Safe. Both questions have the same answer. Howard opened the first box and pulled out a tablet computer. The screen showed the video from his hidden camera crystal clear footage of Ty Huxley entering the house with gloves, duct tape, and a hunting knife. Driggs watched the video twice before speaking. When was this taken? 1 week ago. The night my wife tried to poison me. Howard laid out the evidence methodically. The vial of potassium chloride. The lab report confirming its lethality. Audio recordings of Willa planning the murder. Screenshots of her search history. The insurance policy documents. This is the GoFundMe page she created before I was supposedly dead, Howard said, showing Driggs the computer. Note the timestamp. She posted it 6 hours after the attack. Driggs studied each piece of evidence carefully. As a law enforcement officer, he knew what constituted a solid case. The search history and emails, how did you obtain these? My associate recovered them from deleted files on computers in my house. Everything was legally accessible. It was a careful half-truth. Zadie had indeed recovered files from Howard's own computer, where Willa had done some of her research. The email evidence came from other sources, but Howard didn't mention that. In the boys' recording, Howard played Bo's conversation with Willa. The 9-year-old's clear voice filled the office. Mom said Dad is thinking about coming home. She told someone on the phone they need to move faster. Your son was wearing a wire for his own protection. My wife tried to murder me in front of my children. I needed to know if she planned to hurt them too. Driggs reviewed the evidence again. The case was overwhelming motive, method, opportunity, and premeditation, all clearly documented. I need to ask you something, Howard. Why didn't you come to me immediately? Because she's a respected teacher, and I'm a former soldier who kills people for a living. Without ironclad proof, it becomes her word against mine. So you let her file false police reports, insurance claims, start a fundraising page. I let her commit multiple felonies while being recorded and witnessed. Every lie she told made the case stronger. Driggs was quiet for a long moment. This is the most calculating thing I've ever seen. Both of you. She tried to murder the father of her children for money. I made sure she'd pay for it. And you feel no remorse? No desire to work things out? Howard met the sheriff's eyes. She died the night she chose someone else's life over ours. What I feel now doesn't matter. Driggs made the calls. Within 2 hours, investigators were at the Callahan house collecting physical evidence. Willa was brought in for questioning, but this time she faced a different situation. Mrs. Callahan, Detective Ray Vasquez began, we need to discuss some inconsistencies in your statements. I don't understand. You claim someone broke into your house last Monday night and your husband disappeared during the struggle. That's right. But we have video evidence showing you let this person into your house. You spoke with him. You planned together. Willa's composure cracked slightly. I don't know what you're talking about. Vasquez played the video from Howard's camera. On screen, Willa could be seen talking to Ty, pointing toward the bedroom, discussing how to make Howard's death look accidental. That's not. Someone edited that. We also have the vial of potassium chloride you hid in your bedroom. Enough to kill an adult male in 10 minutes. I've never seen that before. Your fingerprints are on it, along with receipts showing you purchased the chemicals online 3 weeks ago. The interrogation continued for 4 hours. Every lie Willa told was immediately contradicted by evidence. Her story fell apart piece by piece until she finally asked for a lawyer. District Attorney Patricia Morse reviewed the case that evening. She'd prosecuted hundreds of murder cases, but few with this level of premeditation and evidence. It's a slam dunk, she told Howard and Mason. Attempted first-degree murder, conspiracy, fraud, child endangerment, evidence tampering. We can add more charges as we dig deeper. What about Ty Huxley? He's cooperating. Gave us a full statement about the planning process. He'll testify in exchange for a reduced sentence on the parole violation. The formal charges were filed Tuesday morning. Willa was arrested at the school, handcuffed in front of her students and colleagues. The local news covered it extensively. Beloved teacher charged with attempted murder ran on every channel. Howard watched the coverage with his children at Zadie's cabin. Bo seemed satisfied with the outcome, but Delaney didn't understand why Mommy was on television. Is Mommy coming home? She asked. No, Princess. Mommy can't come home anymore. Why? Howard struggled for an answer a 3-year-old could understand. Because she made very bad choices. She hurt people. Did she hurt you? She tried to. Delaney considered this seriously. Are you sad? No. I'm relieved we're safe. The trial took place 3 months later. Howard had requested an expedited schedule, wanting to settle things quickly for the children's sake that Willa's defense attorney tried every angle. Claimed she was coerced by Ty. Argued temporary insanity. Suggested Howard had planted evidence. None of it worked. The prosecution's case was methodical and devastating. They played the video of the break-in, read aloud Willa's internet searches, showed the jury her GoFundMe page and insurance claim documents. BO testified for 20 minutes, answering questions in his clear, precise voice. He described noticing his mother's lies, overhearing phone conversations, recording her admissions. The jury was visibly moved by his courage and intelligence. Did you love your mother? The prosecutor asked. Yes. Do you love her now? Both thought carefully. I love who I thought she was. But that person wasn't real. Ty Huxley's testimony confirmed every detail of the conspiracy. He admitted helping plan Howard's murder in exchange for half the insurance money. His violent outburst at the school had been recorded by multiple witnesses. When Willa took the stand in her own defense, she maintained her innocence but couldn't explain the evidence. Her story kept changing. She claimed the video was fake, then admitted it was real, but said she was protecting her children. She denied knowing about the poison, then claimed Ty forced her to buy it. The jury deliberated for 90 minutes. Guilty on all counts, sentencing. Howard was allowed to make a victim impact statement. He stood at the podium and looked directly at Willa for the first time since the night she tried to kill him. "My son saved my life," he said. "My daughter will never know her mother as anything but a danger. I will raise them safe, and I won't forget what she did." Judge Patricia Chun sentenced Willa to 25 years without the possibility of parole. No plea bargain. No reduced sentence. No mercy. The court finds this was a calculated, premeditated attempt to murder your husband for financial gain. Judge Chin said, "You put your own children at risk and showed no remorse for your actions. The sentence reflects the severity of your crimes and the need to protect society from your behavior." Willa broke down crying as the bailiff led her away. She looked back at Howard one last time, but his expression never changed. Outside the courthouse, reporters asked Howard how he felt about the verdict. "Justice was served. My children are safe. That's all that matters. Do you plan to remarry? No. Will you ever forgive your wife?" Howard looked directly into the camera. "She died the night she chose someone else's life over ours." 1 year later, Howard had built something meaningful from the devastation that Willa's betrayal had brought to their family. Callahan survival training now included a new youth program called Beau's Watch, which represented both a memorial to his son's courage and a practical application of the lessons they had learned during their ordeal. The program taught children between ages 8 and 16 to recognize danger signs, trust their instincts, and protect themselves and others through careful observation and logical thinking. The curriculum that Howard and Beau developed together was based on real-world intelligence-gathering principles adapted for young minds. Children learned to identify when adults were lying by watching for inconsistencies between words and actions, similar to how Beau had noticed his mother's driving route didn't match her stated destination. They practiced recognizing changes in established patterns, understanding that sudden shifts in routine behavior often indicated hidden problems that required adult intervention. Beau, now 10 years old, had grown into his role as both survivor and teacher. His field journal from the night of the attack had become a powerful teaching tool that demonstrated how paying attention to details could literally save lives. When Howard showed the journal to new students, he explained how Beau's systematic observations had provided the early warning system that prevented a successful murder. The children understood that intelligence and courage could be more powerful than size or strength when facing dangerous situations. The program attracted families from across Montana and neighboring states, with parents recognizing the value of teaching children practical life protection skills rather than just theoretical safety concepts. Howard often told parents that the goal wasn't to make children paranoid or suspicious of everyone, but to help them develop the analytical skills needed to distinguish between normal variations in behavior and genuine warning signs of danger. The insurance company never paid Willa's fraudulent claim, and their investigation had provided additional evidence that strengthened the prosecution's case against her. Instead of receiving money, Willa was sued by the insurance company for attempted fraud, and they recovered their investigation costs from her remaining assets. The house where Howard had nearly been murdered was sold to pay legal fees and restitution, with the proceeds going toward victim compensation rather than enriching the person who had tried to commit the crime. Howard used his portion of the money to purchase land adjoining his business property, where he built a new house designed with security as the primary consideration rather than aesthetics or convenience. The structure featured reinforced doors, comprehensive security camera coverage, safe rooms for emergency situations, and multiple escape routes that could be used if the main exits were compromised. Every design decision was informed by the hard-learned lesson that threats could come from the most trusted sources. Delaney, now 4 years old, had adapted to their new life with the resilience that young children often displayed when provided with stability and honest communication appropriate for their developmental level. She had few clear memories of her mother, which Howard considered a blessing given the circumstances. When Delaney asked questions about why other children had mothers who lived with them, Howard provided age-appropriate explanations that focused on safety and family protection rather than details about criminal behavior that would be too complex and frightening for a preschooler to understand. That B.O. continued to thrive in ways that impressed everyone who knew their story. His analytical skills and demonstrated courage had made him a natural leader among his peers, both in school and in the youth survival program. The experience of protecting his family had given Bo a level of confidence and maturity that exceeded his chronological age, but Howard worked carefully to ensure that his son could still enjoy normal childhood experiences despite the serious responsibilities he had shouldered. When people in town asked Bo about visiting his mother in prison, they often expected him to express sadness or confusion about the situation. Instead, Bo would explain with characteristic directness that his mother had made choices that put his family in danger, and that some actions created consequences that couldn't be changed or forgiven. His clarity about right and wrong impressed adults who sometimes struggled with more complex rationalizations about family loyalty versus personal safety. People in Bozeman still discuss the Callahan case regularly, and Howard's calculated response to his wife's betrayal continued to divide public opinion along predictable lines. Some community members called him cold and unforgiving, arguing that families should work through problems together rather than pursuing maximum legal consequences. Others praised him as a protective father who had exposed a dangerous criminal and prevented future victims from suffering similar attacks. Howard had learned early in his Marine career that survival sometimes required making decisions that others would find difficult to understand or accept. Personal feelings and social expectations were luxuries that couldn't be afforded when lives hung in the balance, particularly when those lives belonged to innocent children who depended on adult protection. The approval or disapproval of neighbors mattered far less than ensuring that Bo and Delaney grew up safe and secure. On the anniversary of Willa's sentencing, Howard received a letter from the prison. Willa wanted to see the children. The letter was full of apologies and promises of change. Howard read it once and threw it away without responding. That evening, he sat on his porch watching Bo and Delaney play in the yard. The mountain air was clean and cool. The house was secure. His children were safe. The past was buried. The future was theirs to build. When Bo asked about the letter later, the kid missed nothing. Howard gave him a simple answer. Some bridges need to stay burned. Bo nodded and went back to his book about tracking wildlife. At 10, he understood that some lessons were worth remembering forever.